Philadelphia exhaled a damp, weary breath as I zipped the final biohazard bag shut. The air in the cramped South Philly row house apartment hung thick and cloying, a dissonant perfume of industrial-strength bleach, failing to entirely mask the sweeter, deeper note of human decomposition. 3 weeks undiscovered in a humid August. My job. I'm Maya Alvarez, specialist for Residual Clean Incorporated, was the one who came after the sirens faded, after the coroner's van pulled away, after the neighbors stopped whispering behind cupped hands. I was the one who erased the aftermath, scrubbing away the physical evidence of loneliness and decay. Outside, the setting sun painted the Schuylkill Expressway, visible between gaps in the brick facades, the color of bruised plums. Another day dissolving into the relentless grind. Why this job? The hazardous duty pay was the practical answer, a necessary balm for the financial crater I dug myself into back when my life resembled something normal. But beneath that, buried under layers of self-imposed detachment, was something else. A penance, perhaps, an obsessive need to impose sterile order on the ultimate chaos. A futile attempt to scrub away the indelible stains left by my own past negligence, the mess I couldn't clean up. Here at least the variables were known. Biology, chemistry, decay. My boss, Mr. Abernathy, preferred the term residual. He ran Residual Clean Inc. out of a featureless brick building down near the Port Richmond terminals, a place that smelled of ozone and vaguely spoiled river water. Abernathy himself was cut from the same cloth. Gray suit, gray eyes, a face seemingly composed of compressed granite, offering minimal words and even less emotion. During my hiring, less an interview, more a terse assessment of my stomach lining and willingness to sign non-disclosure forms. He'd handed me the employee handbook. It was thin, cheaply printed, mostly standard OSHA regulations, except for one laminated page tucked into the back, titled simply, Site Protocols, Special Circumstances. Even now, months later, parked in the company van, the city lights beginning to prick the twilight haze, I could feel the phantom weight of that page in my hand. 3 bullet points, typed with unnerving precision. Protocol Alpha, ambient thermal variance, localized, significant, and recurring deviations in temperature within otherwise environmentally stable zones are to be noted but not engaged with. Proceed with standard sanitation protocols, avoiding prolonged exposure to the affected area. My translation: ignore the goddamn cold spots that feel like death breathing on your neck. I had rationalized it as drafts in old Philly buildings, faulty insulation. But the way Abernathy's gray eyes had held mine when he mentioned it, that felt colder than any draft. Protocol Beta. Non-aqueous circular stains. Any perfectly circular, non-reflective, deeply pigmented, typically black, stain of unknown origin is to be treated with extreme caution. Standard cleaning agents are ineffective and contraindicated. Clean around the demarcation line. Do not allow cleaning implements or personnel to breach the circumference. Clean around it. What were we? Cartoon characters avoiding a portable hole. I pictured bizarre chemical reactions, exotic molds, easier than picturing something else. The precision of perfectly circular lodged itself under my skin. Nature abhors a vacuum and perfect circles. Protocol Gamma. Spontaneous technological activation. In the event of activation, auditory or visual, by disconnected or non-powered electronic devices, telephones, screens, radios, personnel are to immediately cease activity in the current room. Secure cleaning implements, exit the premises promptly, and lock the unit. Report Gamma trigger to dispatch. Do not re-enter unit during the assigned shift. Faulty wiring. Residual charge, static buildup. Had to be. The alternative? That dead things were trying to communicate? No. That wasn't logical. That wasn't clean. But the rule's absolute finality, leave immediately, carried a chilling weight. I shook my head, the memory fading as I started the van. The engine rumbling reassuringly solid beneath me. Just protocols for bizarre, but ultimately explainable situations in grim environments. That's all. I pulled away from the curb, leaving the row house to its lingering shadows, merging into the homeward bound traffic. Just another anonymous vehicle in the city's circulatory system. My dispatch tablet chimed, startling me. A new job already. A new job already. Usually, Abernathy gave me at least a few hours between level 2s like the one I just finished. This one flashed with a higher priority code. Unit 7B, the Wessex Arms, Washington Square West. Status, occupant unaccounted for. Neighbor report, 4 weeks. Landlord entry non-responsive. Classification, Level 3 residual assessment and sanitation. Level 3? I'd never had one of those before. The pay scale listed in the handbook for Level 3 was significantly higher. The hazard description chillingly vague. Extreme environmental or atmospheric anomalies possible. Strict protocol adherence mandatory. Washington Square West. Old money, historic buildings, cobblestone alleys, and old secrets. The Wessex Arms was one of those grand pre-war apartment buildings. Elegant but known for eccentric residents and stories that bordered on local legends. I pulled up the file attached. Minimal details. Tenant name, Amelia Thorne. Single occupant, reclusive artist. No next of kin listed. A grainy photo showed a woman with intense dark eyes and unnervingly pale skin. Tucked digitally behind her profile was a scanned newspaper clipping from the Inquirer. 6 months old. Local artist's controversial exhibit draws ire. Thorne's void studies called deeply disturbing. The article included a blurry photo of one of her pieces. A canvas dominated by what looked like a perfect ink-black circle. My blood ran cold. Protocol Beta. A coincidence. It had to be. I navigated the crosstown traffic, the grand architecture of Center City giving way to the tree-lined streets and historic brickwork of Wash West. The Wessex Arms loomed on a quiet side street, elegant gas lamps flickering on its facade as twilight deepened. It looked imposing, silent, watchful. I parked the van, the engine ticking in the sudden quiet, grabbing my primary kit, the industrial cleaners, the hazmat suit I probably wouldn't need, but brought anyway, the UV light, the enzymatic deodorizers. I felt a tremor in my hands. I couldn't blame on caffeine or fatigue. That laminated page from the handbook felt like it was burning a hole in my memory. Level 3. Strict protocol adherence mandatory. Abernathy's gray eye. Apartment 7B. Didn't welcome intrusion. Crossing the threshold felt like stepping into stale. Held breath. The air thick with the acidic tang of turpentine, the ghostly sweetness of linseed oil, and something deeper, colder, a mineral scent like damp cellar stone or freshly turned earth. The heavy damask curtains, drawn tight against the afternoon light bleeding in from Washington Square West, created a somber, pressurized twilight. High ceilings and ornate moldings spoke of faded grandeur, a stark contrast to the palpable sense of recent abrupt vacancy. My usual routine, the methodical grid search and sanitation checklist that normally grounded me, felt fragile here. It was my armor against the grim realities of the job, a way to impose order on the ultimate disorder of death and disappearance. But this apartment resisted order. It felt curated in its emptiness. Canvases stacked neatly facing the wall like punished children. Brushes soaking in stagnant water. A palette smeared with dried pigments left beside a sheet-draped easel. The tableau of a life interrupted, mid-thought. My own past. The messy, indelible stain I couldn't scrub clean, pricked at my consciousness. Was this job penance? Or just a different kind of haunting? I started in the living area, the hum of the HEPA filter, a lonely sound against the profound quiet. Dust lay thick and undisturbed, except where faint outlines on the walls suggested recently removed artwork. Then, the cold, it wasn't a draft from the sealed, ornate windows. It was a distinct zone of frigidity near the fireplace, sharp-edged, biting. My breath plumed. Protocol Alpha. Note but do not engage. Easy to write. Harder to obey when the cold felt like an intelligence, drifting slowly, deliberately across the parquet floor towards the stacked canvases. My own compulsive need for order. For understanding why, what with the ingrained company protocol, and had a primal instinct screaming that this code was fundamentally wrong. I forced myself to focus on dusting a mahogany secretary desk, the skin on my back crawling, hyper-aware of the frigid presence now hovering near the shrouded paintings. Was that a faint sigh, like air escaping a punctured lung, or just the building settling? The kitchen was next, sterile, almost unused. Odd for an artist supposedly working from home. It amplified the feeling of artificiality, of a scene meticulously set. I moved on to the bedroom, large and shadowed, dominated by a four-poster bed, draped in heavy velvet. More oppressive tidiness. Clothes folded, closet organized, nothing obviously disturbed, except for the chill. Another cold zone drifted near the vanity table, its surface empty save for an antique silver-backed brush. I worked around it, movements becoming stiff, overly precise. My focus narrowing to the task, shutting out the peripheral wrongness. The heavy velvet chaise lounge sat in a corner, draped with a paint-splattered drop cloth. It looked out of place, compelled by a need to check beneath it. I shifted its weight slightly. The dropped cloth slithered aside, and there it was, etched onto the dark hardwood floor. Revealed in the beam of my flashlight was the stain. Perfectly, geometrically circular, about a foot across. Its blackness was absolute, a light-devouring void that seemed to warp the floorboards around it. It wasn't a spill. It looked like a burn, a scar, or a hole punched clean through reality itself, yet utterly flat, flush with the surrounding wood. The image from the newspaper clipping, Thorne's Void Study, slammed into my mind. This wasn't art. This was it. Protocol Beta. Clean around the demarcation line. Do not breach the circumference. Nausea rose, hot and acidic. My hand holding a cleaning cloth froze midair. The stain radiated a subtle wrongness, a vibration just below the threshold of hearing. Looking into its flat, non-reflective surface felt like staring into an eclipse. Vertigo threatened to pull me down. My OCD tendencies raged. The imperfection, the contamination, the disorder it represented screamed to be eradicated. Scrub it, bleach it, obliterate it. But the memory of Abernathy's dead eyes, the cold finality of the laminated protocol card, held me paralyzed. Do not breach. Why? What happened if you did? Did you fall in? Did something come out? The air around the stain felt heavy, thick, like static before a strike. I thought I saw faint, iridescent colors swirling deep within the blackness, like oil on water, before blinking them away, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I knelt, forcing myself into the detached methodology of the job. With painstaking, almost religious care, I began cleaning the floor around the stain, using microfiber cloths, moving in slow, deliberate strokes, maintaining a wide, fearful perimeter. My breath hitched every time my hand came close to the demarcation line. The silence in the room deepened, seeming to emanate from the stain itself. The cold spot from the vanity drifted closer, hovering nearby as if observing my work. Finally, the surrounding floor was clean. The black circle remained, stark and absolute against the polished wood, a perfect wound in the room's fabric. As I stood up, legs trembling, I noticed something else on the wall just above the baseboard, near the stain. Tiny black specks. like spattered ink, forming smaller, imperfect circles. They hadn't been there when I started. A new layer of dread iced over the old. It wasn't static. It was spreading, or multiplying. Retreating to the living area, trying to regulate my breathing, I focused on the last section, Amelia Thorne's studio space. Pulling the sheet off the large easel felt like an active violation. The canvas beneath was stark white, primed, waiting, an aborted beginning or preparation for a final masterpiece. Beside the easel, on a tabouret cluttered with brushes and tubes of paint, lay a sketchbook. Unlike the others stacked neatly against the wall, this one was open, spine broken, pages filled with frantic energy, circles everywhere, page after page, drawn with obsessive intensity. Perfect black circles, consuming the paper. Some had faces peering from the edges, mouths open in silent screams. Some overlapped, creating complex, unsettling geometries. Then, beneath a drawing of a circle that seemed to ripple like dark water, text appeared, scrawled in jagged handwriting that vibrated with panic. It opens wider each time, not a void, a hungry eye. Sees me, hears me. The cold follows, the stain breathes. Phone ringing, line's dead, but it calls. Knows my name. It's coming through the wash. The writing ended there, trailing off into a violent smear of graphite, as if the pencil had snapped or the hand had been dragged away. Phone ringing. Lynn's dead, but it calls. Rule Gamma. My head snapped towards the small desk across the room, the one I hadn't cleaned yet, and there it sat. The old black rotary phone, disconnected cord lying uselessly beside it like a dead snake. Waiting. The silence in the studio became immense, charged with the dying echo of Amelia Thorne's frantic scrawl. It calls. My gaze was fixed on the dead black phone across the room, dust motes dancing in the single beam of light, illuminating its inert shape. Every nerve ending screamed. The cold spot, my silent companion, drifted closer, hovering near my shoulder now, its frigidity raising goosebumps beneath my coveralls. The scratching sound I dismissed earlier returned. Louder this time, seemingly from inside the wall behind the canvases. Finish the current room. Leave immediately. Ruler Gamma wasn't just a protocol. It was a survival imperative learned through someone else's final, terrified moments. But the room wasn't finished. The desk, the floor around it, my OCD warred with my terror. Leave it incomplete? Break the pattern? But the image of Thorne's writing. The palpable sense of presence in the room. Suddenly, a jarring, electronic shriek erupted from the desk. Not the phone. The laptop. An old closed machine I hadn't even registered properly. Its screen, dark seconds before, now blazed with a blinding white light, the shriek cutting off as quickly as it began, leaving only the laptop's faint internal fan whirring unexpectedly to life. The white screen resolved into stark black text, corrupted characters flickering at the edges. It sees you behind the canvas. My blood turned to ice. I didn't spin around, didn't look towards the stacked canvases where the scratching had been. Ruler Gamma wasn't about phones only. Spontaneous technological activation. This counted. This absolutely counted. Finish the room. Right. The desk area. I moved towards it. Legs stiff, robotic, forcing myself through the motions. My eyes kept darting towards the canvases, towards the blank wall behind them. What was there? The scratching had stopped. The cold spot hung near the desk now, waiting. Then, as my hand reached out to wipe down the dusty surface beside the still glowing laptop, the sharp, metallic, insistent ring of the rotary phone exploded through the apartment. Impossibly loud, painfully piercing, shattering the tense silence. Unplugged, dead, but ringing. That was it. No more protocol. No more finishing the room. Just out. I dropped the cleaning cloth, grabbed my kit bag by its strap, nearly yanking the vacuum cleaner over in my haste. The phone continued its relentless, jarring summons. The laptop screen still blazed its silent warning. I scrambled towards the apartment door, fumbling with the multiple locks Thorne had installed. The phone stopped ringing the instant my hand closed around the final deadbolt. Silence crashed back in, thick and suffocating. My key scraped in the lock. Turned. I yanked the heavy door open and froze, standing silently in the dimly lit hallway. Right outside the door was Mr. Abernathy. He wasn't looking at me. His gray eyes were fixed on something inside the apartment, over my shoulder. His usually impassive face was tight, drawn, holding an expression I hadn't seen before. Not fear, exactly, but a kind of grim, focused intensity. He held a heavy-duty silver canister, like an industrial fire extinguisher, but with strange symbols etched onto its surface. "Gamma trigger confirmed. Maya," he said, his voice low, calm, but stretched taut. He didn't look away from the apartment's interior. "Protocol deviation noted. Exit the building. Now, do not look back at Unit 7B. Report to Dispatch 1 for reassignment." I didn't need telling twice. I squeezed past him, avoiding his gaze, avoiding looking back into the apartment where the laptop still glowed and the silence felt like a physical entity. Abernathy stepped aside, raising the silver canister slightly as I passed, as if preparing to spray something into the room. I didn't run, but I walked fast, down the hallway, down the stairs, ignoring the slow groan of the elevator, out through the heavy brass doors, into the blessedly normal, noisy embrace of the Philadelphia evening. Sirens wailed in the distance. Traffic hummed. People laughed in a nearby bar. Reality shaking. I got into the van, locked the doors, the smell of bleach and decay clinging to me. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone to report to Dispatch 1 as ordered. What the hell had just happened? Abernathy knew he was there. That canister. What was he doing? Was he cleaning up? Or containing something? My company phone chimed before I could make the call. A new notification on the Secure Work app, not from Dispatch, directly from Abernathy's priority channel. Assignment update. Unit 8B, the Wessex Arms. Status: immediate residual containment assistance required. Proceed to unit. Abernathy on site. Classification: Level 4. Level 4. That wasn't even in the handbook. My blood ran cold. Assistance required. He wanted me to go back towards the floor directly above Amelia Thorne's apartment. While he was doing whatever he was doing in 7B, I stared at the message, then up at the imposing facade of the Wessex Arms, its upper windows dark and watchful against the twilight sky. This wasn't just cleaning anymore. This was something else entirely. And I was right in the middle of it. My hand tightened on the gear shift. Drive away. Ignore the assignment. Break protocol completely, or go back upstairs. Find out what Abernathy was really doing. Find out what lurked in the heart of the Wessex Arms. Find out what Protocol Beta really meant, when you couldn't just clean around it anymore. The glowing notification on my company phone felt like a death sentence, auto-generated from hell. Unit 8B. Immediate residual containment assistance required. Abernathy on site. Level 4? Level 4 wasn't in the handbook. It implied uncharted territory. A danger zone beyond the already terrifying protocols I was barely surviving. And Abernathy wanted me back inside the building, directly above the vortex of wrongness I had just fled. Every instinct screamed drive. Leave Viridian City. Leave Residual Clean. Leave the memory of that black stain and the dead phone's impossible ring. Go somewhere anonymous. Somewhere the silence was just silence. But the image of Abernathy standing grimly outside 7B, holding that strange silver canister ready to face, Something snagged on my ingrained sense of order, my pathological need to see a job finished. And beneath that, a colder, sharper curiosity. What was level 4? What was Abernathy really doing? What was the source of the residue I was paid hazard wages to erase? Running felt like leaving the equation unsolved, the contamination uncontained. And maybe, just maybe, going back was the only way to truly understand the mess I was already neck-deep in. With a shaky breath that tasted of fear and rain, I killed the engine, pocketed my personal phone, and grabbed the heavy silver canister that was standard issue in the van but rarely mentioned in training. The one marked emergency containment foam. Corrosive. I'd never had cause to even look at it closely before. Now, its weight felt both terrifying and necessary. Re-entering the lobby of the Wessex Arms felt like willingly stepping into a crypt. The air was colder than before, the silence somehow heavier. Listening, the elegant marble floor seemed to gleam faintly under the emergency lights, reflecting distorted shadows. I bypassed the groaning elevator, taking the wide, carpeted stairs 2 at a time. My footsteps loud in the unnatural quiet. The 7th floor was silent, the door to 7B firmly shut. No light leaked from under it, no sound. Had Abernathy already finished? Or was he? My hand tightened on the canister. Shaking my head, I forced myself upward. The 8th floor hallway was identical to the 7th, but felt worse. The air was noticeably colder, carrying a sharp, acrid smell beneath the dust and lemon oil, like ozone mixed with ammonia, or the scent Abernathy's canister might emit. The door to 8B stood slightly ajar, darkness pooling within. No sounds came from inside. Abernathy? I called softly, my voice thin in the heavy silence. No answer. Pushing the door open wider, flashlight held high, canister ready, I stepped inside. The layout was a mirror image of 7B below, but the state was vastly different. This apartment wasn't neat or curated. It was chaos. The air was thick with the ozone ammonia smell, and the underlying cold, mineral scent from 7B, much stronger here. And Abernathy was there. He stood in the center of the living room, back to me, facing the ceiling directly above where the bedroom stain would be in 7B. He held his own silver canister, aiming its nozzle upwards. The ceiling plaster there was dark, discolored, blistered, as if by intense cold or chemical reaction. A faint, deep humming sound vibrated through the floorboards, seemingly coming from below. Report, Abernathy snapped without turning around, his voice tight. Unit 7B, Gamma Trigger confirmed, I said, stepping further into the room, my eyes scanning the shadows. Premises vacated and secured per. Forget protocol. He cut me off. What did you see? Phone and laptop activation. Message displayed. I hesitated. There was significant cold presence, and the stain from the file. It was on the floor. He nodded curtly. As expected, the bleed-through is accelerating. He finally turned, his gray eyes intense, face grim. Amelia Thorne wasn't just painting circles, Maya. She was trying to paint over a weak spot, a nexus. When she vanished, she destabilized it. What you felt down there was just the residue seeping through. Up here, he gestured at the stained ceiling, is where the pressure is building. As he spoke, a low groan resonated through the floor. Deeper than the hum, the darkened patch on the ceiling seemed to pulse. A thin line of black, oily liquid oozed from a crack in the plaster, thick as tar. What is it? I breathed, horrified. A breach, Abernathy said, raising his canister again. Abernathy said, raising his canister again. A thinning between. Here and somewhere else. Fed by absence, by despair. Thorne opened it wider. Now it once more. He glanced at me. Level 4 means active. Aggressive expansion. We contain it, cauterize it, before it fully anchors. Suddenly, a sharp, intense cold spot materialized right beside me. Rule 1 ignored. Impossible now. My breath hitched simultaneously. A disconnected table lamp on a nearby overturned desk flickered violently, its dead bulb glowing with that same sick gray light I'd seen on the laptop downstairs. Rule 3 trigger. It knows we're here, Abernathy stated calmly, though a muscle twitched in his jaw. Get ready, Maya. Standard containment foam is just a temporary sealant. This requires the catalyst. He nodded towards the ceiling. When I give the word, aim your canister there. Continuous spray. The humming intensified. The black ooze dripped faster, hitting the floor with soft, wet plops. The circular stain on the ceiling visibly darkened, expanding outwards like pooling ink. The cold spot beside me grew, painful now, leaching warmth, pressing close. I could almost hear faint, overlapping whispers within the humming sound. Indistinct, but filled with cold, empty hunger. Now, Maya, Abernathy shouted, aiming his own canister. Hit it now. I raised the heavy canister, fumbling slightly with the nozzle, aiming at the rapidly darkening weeping stain on the ceiling as Abernathy had ordered. His own canister hissed, releasing a stream of thick silvery foam that hit the black ooze. There was a violent sizzle, like water hitting hot grease, and a pulse of absolute cold washed through the room, extinguishing the flickering lamp and making my teeth ache. Yours, Abernathy yelled over the rising hum. Coat the entire area. My finger clamped down on the trigger. A different kind of foam erupted. Not silver, but a viscous, almost translucent substance that shimmered faintly. It hit the ceiling around Abernathy's silver patch, spreading quickly. The humming intensified to a deafening drone. The black ooze fought against the foam, bubbling, receding slightly where the silver spray hit, but pushing outwards aggressively against my translucent spray. The cold spot beside me vanished, only to reappear directly in front of the ceiling stain, coalescing, darkening. It felt like a physical blow, the temperature dropping so fast it burned. Through the shimmering air, I thought I saw a shape within the cold, tall, thin, indistinct, like a figure made of television, static, and ice. It seemed to be pushing against the ceiling from the other side, trying to force the breach wider. Keep spraying, Abernathy commanded, adjusting his aim, his face pale but set. Don't let it stabilize. The black stain on the ceiling pulsed violently. The plaster cracked further, raining dust and black droplets onto the floor. One landed on my arm, burning like acid despite its coldness. I cried out, stumbling back, but kept the spray aimed upwards. The whispers intensified, swirling around me now. Coherent fragments emerging from the drone. Empty, cold. Join us. Open. Free. Open. Images flashed behind my eyes. Amelia Thorne's terrified face, the black circle consuming her. The couple from my first shift, their faces hollow, the impossible void where the faceless entity's features should have been. It was a glimpse into the absence the stain represented, the place the vanished went. Suddenly, Abernathy cursed. His canister sputtered, died. Empty. The silver foam stopped. Instantly, the black ooze surged outwards, overwhelming the containment field, dripping heavily, forming a pooling black circle on the floor that mirrored the stain I'd found below. It was a passage. The figure forming in the cold spot solidified further, becoming clearer, impossibly tall, limbs too long, wrapped in shifting shadows, its presence radiating utter cold and emptiness. It reached a shadowy arm downwards from the ceiling towards the pool forming on the floor. Maya, Abernathy shouted, grabbing my arm. Your canister. The catalyst works differently. Aim for the pool. Seal the floor breach. He was right. My foam wasn't just containing. It seemed to react, harden, almost crystallized where it hit the blackness, breaking protocol again. Following his desperate order, I shifted my aim, spraying the translucent foam directly into the rapidly growing black pool on the floor. The effect was immediate. The blackness recoiled from the shimmering substance. Where the foam hit, the black circle seemed to freeze, then solidify, turning into a hard, obsidian-like surface. The humming drone spiked into a piercing shriek of frustration, echoing from the ceiling breach and the solidifying pool on the floor. The shadowy figure above retracted its arm violently as the floor pool rapidly hardened, closing the link. But the entity wasn't finished. Denied the floor breach, it seemed to pour its remaining energy downwards. The cold intensified blindingly. The entire ceiling section groaned, cracked wider. Not just ooze, but something else started to push through. Pale, grasping, multi-jointed fingers scrabbling at the edges of the plaster, trying to force their way into the room. My canister sputtered, almost empty. Abernathy shoved me towards the door. "Go, get out, seal the apartment." "What about you?" I yelled back, horrified. "My job," he shouted, pulling something small and metallic from his belt. It looked like a detonator. "Just go." I didn't hesitate this time. I ran, stumbling over overturned furniture, out into the 8th floor hallway. As Abernathy slammed the door to 8B shut behind me, I heard the heavy thunk of multiple locks engaging from his side, followed instantly by a muffled, concussive oomph from within the apartment. The door bulged outward slightly, then held. A wave of intense cold washed under the door, followed by utter silence. I stood there in the hallway, shaking, canister empty, heart pounding, staring at the sealed door of apartment 8B. The acrid smell lingered. Had Abernathy contained it, sealed himself inside with it? My company phone vibrated. A text message from Abernathy's priority channel. Containment achieved. Site compromised. Vacate building. Report for debriefing. Level 4 protocols enacted. Level 4? Containment compromised. He was alive. But the cold finality of the message offered no relief. I looked back at the sealed door, then down the empty, silent hallway. I had survived. I had helped contain. Whatever that was. But I'd crossed a line. I wasn't just cleaning up the residue anymore. I was part of the containment. And the feeling wasn't triumph. It was the cold, dawning horror of understanding just how deep the stain went. Emerging from the Wessex Arms felt like surfacing into a different reality. The Philadelphia dawn was gray, indifferent. The sounds of early traffic and distant sirens, jarringly normal after the contained chaos of apartment 8B. I leaned against the cold brick of the building, sucking in damp city air. The acrid tang of the Abernathy's containment foam still sharp in my nostrils. My body thrummed with adrenaline's aftermath, trembling not just from fear, but from a strange, resonant hum that seemed to linger in my bones. An echo of the entity's shriek or the breached ceiling. I reported the compromised site and Gamma Trigger via the secure app, receiving the curt summons back to the Port Richmond HQ. The drive was automatic, my mind replaying the events in 8BB. The pulsating stain, the grasping fingers, Abernathy's cold competence, the feel of the Type C foam reacting with the black pool on the floor. Not just sealing, but interacting. Almost us sealing, absorbing the energy in a way Abernathy's silver spray hadn't. The debriefing room was the same sterile gray box. Abernathy sat waiting, immaculate as ever, though I thought I detected a faint chemical sharpness clinging to him, and perhaps a new, almost imperceptible tremor in his left hand as he lifted his coffee cup. "Report," he commanded, his voice flat. I recounted the events in 8B, focusing on the entity's manifestation, the ceiling breach, the floor pool, his orders, the deployment of both canisters. I described the Type C foam, solidifying the floor breach, the entity's enraged reaction. Abernathy listened intently, making notes. Level 4 protocols necessitate direct containment of active manifestations, he stated, confirming my assessment. The breach in 7B, aggravated by Thorn's activities, created a sympathetic resonance point directly above, common in structures with high residual saturation. He looked up, his gray eyes sharp. Your deployment of the Type C catalyst on the floor manifestation was notable. Standard procedure is sealing containment first. Sealing the floor breach while the primary conduit was still active was high risk, he explained coolly, but effective. The Type C compound is experimental, designed to neutralize residual energy signatures through rapid crystallization and energetic absorption. Your intuitive application yielded results exceeding projections. He paused. Your sensitivity seems more pronounced than initial assessments indicated. Some individuals form unpredictable bonds with residual energies during high-stress containment. Unpredictable bonds. The phrase sent a chill down my spine. I thought of the gray stone in my pocket, still radiating a faint, almost pulsing cold. I thought of the lingering hum in my bones. Thorn destabilized the nexus, Abernathy continued. Our role is to restore equilibrium, containment achieved for now. The Wessex arms will be placed under long-term monitoring. He steepled his fingers. Your performance under level 4 conditions warrants review. You have two options. Return to standard sanitation duties with mandatory psych evaluations. Or, his gaze intensified, accept provisional promotion to containment specialist. Advanced training, higher risk, commensurate compensation. The choice felt less like an option and more like a current pulling me forward. Go back to scrubbing floors, pretending I hadn't seen behind the veil, or dive deeper, understand the forces Abernathy so coldly managed. My past felt like a series of messes I couldn't clean. Maybe this was a chance to finally contain something properly, and that hum inside me. It felt less like fear now, more like resonance. The specialist training, I said, surprised at the steadiness of my own voice. I accept. Abernathy simply nodded. Report 800 Monday. New equipment, new protocols. He stood. And Ms. Alvarez, Rule Delta remains absolute. Confidentiality is paramount. Welcome to Level 4. Leaving the gray building, the city felt different. The ordinary world seemed overlaid with a faint, shimmering static, like seeing the code beneath reality. The debriefing hadn't brought clarity. It had deepened the mystery, placing me firmly inside it. My hand closed around the gray stone in my pocket. It felt almost warm now. The training was less instruction, more brutal immersion. Abernathy drilled me on identifying breach signatures, deploying containment fields, interpreting sensor logs filled with impossible energy readings. He taught me about different types of residue, passive echoes, active manifestations, sentient stains, sympathetic resonances. He explained the Type A, foam cauterized, burned energy out. The Type C absorbed, neutralized, crystallized. His methods were efficient, cold, focused solely on containment, never eradication or understanding the source. I learned quickly, my obsessive nature finding perverse satisfaction in the complex protocols, the precise calibration of equipment. I accompanied Abernathy on several level 3 containments, a weeping stain in an old Society Hill library, echoing cold spots in a defunct factory near the Navy Yard. I grew adept with the canisters, the sensors, but something felt wrong. Abernathy treated the breaches like burst pipes, leaks to be plugged. I felt more, a resonance, an empathy, almost with the lingering energy, the trapped echoes, the twist. The true mind-bending shift came not during a job, but later, alone in my apartment. I was examining the gray stone from Amelia Thorne's apartment, turning it over and over under a bright lamp. It was smooth, featureless, yet seemed to hold infinite depth. As I stared into it, the strange resonance I'd felt since St. Barnabas intensified. The stone warmed in my hand, and then I saw it. Not on the stone, but within it, swirling patterns of darkness, like Thorne's ink sketches, but moving, alive. And within the swirls, fleeting images, sensations, the smell of turpentine, the despair of creative block, the terror of the expanding black stain. Her final thought. It seized me. I dropped the stone as if burned. It clattered onto my table, inert again. But I knew what I'd seen. It wasn't just a stone. It was a recording, an imprint, like geological strata holding fossils. It held the final moments, the essence of Amelia Thorne. The black stains weren't just portals or residue. They absorbed. They imprinted consciousness. And the Type C foam, Abernathy said it absorbed energy, crystallized it. Had it crystallized Thorne's final moments into that stone? And my sensitivity? My unpredictable bond. The resonance I felt? It wasn't just empathy. It was affinity. My past trauma, the messes I couldn't clean, hadn't just made me vulnerable. It had cracked something open inside me. I could feel the echoes, resonate with them, and maybe absorb them too. The thought was horrifying, exhilarating. Was that the company's real goal? To find people like me? Was containment just a euphemism for collection? I didn't confront Abernathy. What was the point? He already knew, or suspected, his cult protocols, his focus on containment above all else. It made a terrifying kind of sense if the goal was to manage, harvest, or study these trapped essences, not resolve them. I continued the work. I had to. Where else could I go? But my approach changed. I still followed protocol mostly, contained the active threats, but the residue, the cold spots, the faint whispers, the stains. I started interacting differently, not cleansing in the way I'd first imagined, but listening, resonating. When I encountered a passive cold spot now, I didn't just ignore it. I focused on the lingering emotion within it, acknowledged it silently. When I found a dormant stain, I'd pause, letting that strange hum inside me connect with the echo trapped within the blackness. Sometimes I'd feel flashes, grief, confusion, terror, the final moments of the vanished, absorbed not into a stone, but into me, faintly, temporarily, like echoes in an empty room. Am I containing them, or am I becoming a container? A living archive of the city's lost souls, bound to Residual Clean's cold system. Tonight, I stand before a new assignment, an old brownstone in Fishtown, long vacant. Neighbors reporting strange fluctuations in temperature, faint sounds like weeping. Standard level 3 assessment. Abernathy trusts my judgment now. Lets me handle most 3s solo. Inside, the air is thick with dust and regret. A cold spot drifts in the main room, heavy with sorrow. And on the floor, partially hidden by a decaying armchair, is the telltale sign. A perfect circle of absolute black, radiating a faint, almost hungry stillness. I approach it slowly, meter in hand, canister ready, but I don't immediately reach for the foam. I kneel beside the stain, looking into its lightless depth. The familiar hum starts within me, a strange sympathy. I close my eyes, reaching out not with my hand, but with that part of me that resonates with the absence, with the echo trapped inside the black. Who were you? What happened here? A faint whisper answers, not in my ears, but in my mind, cold and clear. Let me remember. I open my eyes. My job isn't just to clean around the edges anymore. It's to listen, to absorb, to remember. I am the cleanser. I am the collection. The city holds its breath, and I hold its ghosts. The work continues. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button. Drop a comment. and share it with someone who sleeps with the lights on. Want more dark stories, strange rules, and terrifying truths hiding in plain sight? Subscribe tonight, Creepypasta Rules, and turn on the bell so you never miss when the next protocol breaks. And remember, the stain might be silent, but it's still spreading.